This is the story of 4 of my locomotives: a Bachmann A1, a Grzly P1, a Robinson B5, and a Grzly S-Class. They're all related, and here's how. It all started off with the purchase of the Bachmann A4 after my kit-built one was never quite as good a runner as I would have liked. The kit-built one was lovely and heavy, but didn't run very nicely at all because the motor wasn't properly mounted. The Bachmann one is a lovely smooth runner, but doesn't pull as much as the kit-built one. After studying the pictures of the S tanks, it was noted that the front section, the boiler, the cylinders and the coupled 8 chassis was identical to the O4. So a plan was hatched from these 2 photographs, which was scaled to size, to build my tank from it. This is the completed tank, and it's made from these scale photographs. This tank uses the boiler, the cylinders, and the 08 section of the frames with the motor from my Robinson A4 that I disassembled. The cab structure, the tanks, and the rear bunker are all made from thin tin plate, which was made over lockdown into the bodywork. Here you can see my bodywork unpainted and clearly see the kit boiler with my tin plate tanks. The card templates for these were taken directly from the photographs and then tried onto the chassis. The end result is a brute of a locomotive which runs slowly and surely and nicely, even though it only ever spent its life hump shunting. So the majority of the engine of my poor old kit-built O4 has now been used up. The tender fitted neatly onto my next design. This is a Robinson B5 and utilises the cab roof and the tender, not actually even repainted from kit-built O4 days. This was also built out of tin plate, as you can see here, unpainted, using a B12 chassis and Princess, I think, valve gear from the 1960s as the outside crossheads. The chimney was copied from the O4 casting in cuttlefish and cast in white metal. And the front end looks quite good and detailed to my eyes at least. This loco was a phenomenally quick lockdown build, about 13 days in total. It was originally meant to be 6072, but I ran out of space, so it had to be 6071. So this is the second locomotive to be made from my O4. The next loco is not one you would necessarily associate, because it's not a Robinson locomotive. This is a Grzly P1. This locomotive, claim to fame, is using the bogie from the 280. The rest of it is scratch built using a Hornby A1 body and a completely scratch built chassis. Because of the space underneath the boiler, I used a tender drive. That allowed this under boiler gap to happen, as well as allowing a lot of slop in the axles so that my train would still go round my unfortunate tight corners. The scratch-built valve gear works well, and the heavily modified Hornby body shell just about purports to be the unique P1 tender. The Hornby A1 body shell actually only needs 2mm removing from behind the smoke box and is then mounted on my brass chassis. The frames were actually cut out over 20 years ago and sat in a box for a long time. I wasn't actually sure they were P1 until I started to build it and realised that the photocopies on the frames matched my plans. The only unused parts of my original kit built Robinson O4 are the splasher covers, seen here next to the replacement. Even these have an end destination in the form of a LNER B7 with another B12 chassis re-wheeled with Romford gears, which matches my scaled drawing photograph plan, and the splashers will fit quite nicely into the bodywork once they've been made.